Right at this very moment, an invaluable organic asset is sitting on your kitchen counter. You just created it this morning, half asleep, and you will undoubtedly create more of it tomorrow. But then, like millions of others, you clean it up and toss it straight into the trash without a second thought, only to drive to the garden center that very afternoon, pulling out your wallet to blow piles of cash on flashy, branded packaging, soil amendments that actually offer less biological value to your garden than the humble waste you just threw away. The thing I am referring to is used coffee grounds. And before you shake your head and purse your lips to tell me you heard this decades ago, that you once dumped a bucket of coffee grounds at the base of a tree and no miracle occurred, please bear with me. The way most people in this world treat coffee grounds is dead wrong. Not just slightly wrong, but so fundamentally flawed that it is literally suffocating the lifeblood of the soil instead of saving it. The difference between a useless handful of coffee grounds and a form of black gold capable of completely transforming your garden bed's ecosystem doesn't lie in magic. It lies in 3 quiet methods applied in the exact right dosage at the exact right time. Once you master that delicate boundary, you hold in your hands one of the most potent, free biological levers that nature has ever gifted to the home gardener. Let's start by unpacking what is truly hidden inside those dark brown crumbs. The actual numbers will astound you. Coffee grounds carry roughly 2% nitrogen, along with 1/3% phosphorus and 1/3% potassium. If you are a label reader, you will instantly recognize that it is the exact same NPK power trio printed massively on the front of every expensive commercial fertilizer bag. Yep, the way coffee grounds unleash their power exists on a completely different echelon compared to synthetic biochemical products. And that difference is the very root of long-term abundance. Imagine how chemical fertilizers operate. They pour down into the earth like a flash flood. A massive, spiking dose of chemicals slams directly into the root zone. The roots frantically absorb whatever they can swallow during this shock, and the vast majority of the excess chemicals left over will be mercilessly washed away by the next rain. They leach into the groundwater, flow out into rivers and streams, and leave behind a plot of land that is empty, barren, and screaming for you to apply yet another round of chemicals. Coffee grounds, on the other hand, carry the philosophy of slow living. They refuse to release in a massive rush. Instead, they quietly and persistently dole out nutrients over weeks and months, perfectly matching the chewing and decomposing rhythm of subterranean microbes. No spiking chemical shocks, no exhausting crashes, no wasteful runoff. It is simply a trickling stream of nitrogen and trace minerals, continuously pumped straight into the soil's veins. That is precisely how roots crave to be nourished most. Being fed steadily every day builds resilient timber, foliage that stands strong against disease, infinitely more magnificent than the tragic boom and bust cycles of industrial fertilizers. But if we only look at the NPK index, we are merely reading the tip of the iceberg. The absolute greatest power of coffee grounds lies in their ability to summon life. And this is the secret that almost every shallow gardening manual out there misses entirely. Coffee grounds are one of the most hypnotically seductive calls to earthworms. When you scatter coffee grounds from deep within the dark subsoil, earthworms will actively forge a path, migrating en masse toward the amended earth. Thousands of earthworms mean thousands of biological drill bits, plowing through and creating countless tiny capillary tunnels across compacted dirt, guiding oxygen and rainwater down to the absolute depths of the roots. Their presence transforms the physical structure of the soil, and more importantly, They turn coffee grounds into worm castings, the most luxurious and perfect natural fertilizer on the planet. Worm castings ooze humic acid, disease-resistant bacteria, and a massive array of minerals in a pre-digested form that plant roots can absorb instantly. By the way, speaking of the miraculous structure of the earth, I truly want to pause for a beat to listen to the story of your own garden. Right now, from what climate are you watching this film? Is the earth beneath your feet heavy clay, drought-prone sand, or a plot of fertile alluvial soil? And have you ever accidentally buried something from your kitchen into the dirt, only to be left in awe by how nature recycled it? In every region, the secret to awakening Mother Earth carries its own unique nuance. Please generously linger for a few seconds. Leave a comment sharing the condition of your local soil or a rustic gardening tip passed down from your grandparents. We sit here not just to absorb one-way knowledge, but to weave together an ecological agricultural knowledge map where precious experiences from every continent are intertwined and preserved for generations to come. Returning to our subterranean chain reaction, the worms arrive, microbes multiply, mycorrhizal fungal networks explode outward like neurons, the soil structure turns spongy, and water is trapped deeply instead of running off the surface. Every week you bestow a little more coffee grounds. This biological flywheel accelerates another beat. However, there is a thick cloud of prejudice obscuring the vision of millions of gardeners. A false rumor that has robbed them of the right to use this free resource. You have surely memorized the threat. Coffee grounds make the soil sour. They increase acidity. It sounds incredibly logical. The coffee we drink has a bright, acidic taste, so its grounds must surely carry that acidity. But scientific truth throws a bucket of cold water on that logic. Yes, unbrewed, fresh coffee beans are acidic. But recall the basic chemistry of brewing. The acidic compounds in coffee are highly water-soluble. They have already followed the trickling hot water into your morning cup to wake you up. The depleted grounds left behind in the filter are actually inert organic matter, carrying a pH hovering between 6.5 and 6.8, a level that is almost perfectly neutral. With a volume of 1 or 2 cups of grounds scattered steadily each week across a standard garden bed, it is completely powerless to bend the pH of Mother Earth. This acidity illusion persists stubbornly only because it sounds plausible, not because it is the truth. Therefore, shed this burden of acidic anxiety and begin to cherish this black gold. But nature always has boundaries. And coffee grounds also possess a hidden blade, caffeine residue. Even after brewing, coffee grounds cling to a trace amount of caffeine. In the botanical world, caffeine is a compound capable of inhibiting seed germination and paralyzing the root development of fragile young seedlings. So there is one thing you must be hyper-vigilant about, a fatal mistake many gardeners have made. Absolutely never sprinkle coffee grounds directly around a seed-starting area. Newly sprouted seedlings, or plants that are under 10 centimeters tall and haven't pushed out their second set of true leaves. Leave them in peace. But once the plant has grown sturdy, its roots anchored deep, and entered its explosive vegetative stage, that minuscule amount of caffeine is no longer a barrier. For mature warriors like tomatoes, peppers, pumpkins, herbs, or berry bushes, coffee grounds at this point only signify abundance and reinforcement. It is time we step into the tactical execution. Because the act of scooping a shovel full of sopping wet coffee grounds, slapping a pile down at the base of a tomato plant, and clasping your hands to pray for the best is not called a method. It is sabotage. How you let the coffee grounds touch the earth will dictate whether it acts as a savior or a destroyer. The most lethal mistake, the one that has murdered the faith of countless gardeners, lies in the greed for thickness. They dump an entire mound of coffee grounds around the base with a naive mindset: more is better. They do not realize that any layer of coffee grounds thicker than half a centimeter will instantly mat together, bake dry, and form a highly compacted, hydrophobic crust on the surface. That black mat will behave exactly like a raincoat rejecting nature. Rain will hit it and slide away. Irrigation water will pool up and spill over the sides instead of penetrating down to the roots. The plants beneath are suffocated, dying of thirst, while the bewildered gardener blames the coffee grounds. The coffee grounds are innocent. Greed and ignorance are the true culprits. Thin and scattered is always greater than thick and piled. That is the ultimate truth. That truth leads us to an incredibly simple execution, a surface-scratching art form that you can view as a morning meditation. After sipping your coffee, take the grounds out to the garden. Sprinkle them in a mist-thin layer across the surface of the soil bed, absolutely never letting them clump into patches. Then, use your bare fingers or a small hand cultivator to gently massage and scratch them into the top 2 to 3 centimeters of soil. This process takes less than 5 minutes. No engine noise, no cost. Repeat this ritual once a week throughout the growing season, and the miracle will silently unfold. For the first few weeks, a profound stillness covers the earth. You won't see anything different because the banquet is happening underground. The microbes are waking up. The earthworms are marching en masse toward the nitrogen feast. By week 6, you scoop up a handful of earth and are stunned. The soil color has mysteriously darkened. It is no longer lifeless, hard-packed dirt. It is loose, moist, and springy like a living sponge. By midsummer, your plants will surge upward with a proud, deep green hue, boasting thick stems and pushing out new shoots far more resiliently than any neighboring garden. The majesty of this method lies in accumulation. One massive dumping solves nothing, but the persistent, drip-fed thin layers applied weekly will construct an unbreakable biological legacy. But if you are someone who truly understands the power of nature's reincarnation and happens to own a compost bin, this is where coffee grounds truly go supernova. Anyone who genuinely loves the soil must have a compost pile. A compost pile is a biological reactor that demands a delicate balance between brown materials, dry leaves, cardboard, dead twigs, low in nitrogen, rich in carbon, and green materials, kitchen scraps, fresh grass, abundant in nitrogen. Coffee grounds are a heavyweight green material warrior with a flawless carbon-to-nitrogen ratio of 20:1. If your compost pile is running cold and breaking down sluggishly, sprinkle layers of coffee grounds interleaved with dry leaves. Within 24 to 48 hours, slide your hand into the center of the pile and you will feel an intense heat radiating outward. That heat is the physical heartbeat of billions of bacteria being heavily fueled by nitrogen, frantically tearing apart and breaking down stubborn, woody structures. The finished compost, incubated with coffee grounds, will emerge pitch black, densely packed with nutrients, and pulsing with a life force far superior to standard compost. But what if your garden contains wilted, pale plants, exhausted lives struggling through their flowering and fruiting stage that simply cannot wait for months-long decomposition processes? You will need a much faster emergency rescue, brewing a survival-drenched tea. This is the most lightning-fast biological boost that very few have ever tried. Take roughly 3 cups of used coffee grounds, dissolve them into a 20-liter bucket of clean water, stir vigorously, and let the solution sit quietly overnight. This 24-hour steeping process will pull all the trace minerals, nitrogen, and potassium into the water, transforming the bucket into a shimmering, dark brown elixir. The next morning, slowly pour this concentrated liquid directly into the root zones of your thirsty plants. The miracle here is pure speed. The dissolved minerals do not need to wait for microbes to break them down. They instantly slip down into the root zone, absorb into the capillaries, and shoot straight up the plant's stem. Within just 1 week, you will witness the leaves shift back to a deep, healthy green, and the axillary buds burst open as if injected with a dose of pure vitality. This method does not replace long-term soil building. It is the emergency room, the hyper-speed nutritional supplement during the times your crops are under the heaviest reproductive stress. Once you have mastered all 3 methods, elevate your awareness to a higher realm: ecosystem thinking. Coffee grounds, when used alone, are excellent, but coffee grounds placed into a soil system that already features compost and a surface layer of mulch become an exponential miracle. The compost provides the foundational organic mass. The coffee grounds act as the catalyst, the ignition switch. Nitrogen stimulates the microbes to rapidly digest that compost, and the mulch, straw, dry leaves, sits on top, acting as a shield, locking in moisture and protecting the fragile microbes from the scorching sun so they can work in peace. Earthworms, smelling the coffee grounds, will rise to the surface, dragging the compost deep down into the lower strata as they travel. Fungal threads will weave intricate networks beneath the mulch, forging highways to transport nutrients. There is not a single expensive fertilizer on the face of this earth that can replicate that majestic, synchronized choreography of nature. Your patience will be rewarded with a profound shift in gardening economics. An average gardener spends millions of dong every year on lifeless synthetic fertilizers, only to find their soil addicted to chemicals and more barren than when they started 5 years later. Conversely, someone who understands nature, who uses weekly coffee ground sprinklings, composts their leaves, and gathers straw for mulch, will see their costs officially drop to 0 after the first season. Over 5 years, massive amounts of money are retained within the household, while the earth beneath their feet grows deeper, blacker, more elastic, and unthinkably fertile with each passing year. You don't need to own a coffee plantation to secure enough material. The bustling coffee shops out on the streets are dumping out dozens of kilos of grounds every single day and suffering headaches trying to manage the waste. Walk in, smile, and politely ask to take it off their hands. You are helping them take out the trash, and they are gifting you free black gold. Just remember, once you bring it home, spread it out on some newspaper to dry. Store it in a paper bag or a partially open plastic bucket to allow for airflow. Absolutely never seal wet coffee grounds in an airtight container, or toxic mold will bloom and destroy all your efforts. Everything is a quiet loop. Your coffee cup is empty. The depleted crumbs are resting silently in the filter. Right now, the power of life and death rests entirely in the flick of your wrist. Will they go into a foul-smelling trash can, ending a meaningless life cycle in a colossal landfill? Or will they be gently carried out to the garden, returned to Mother Earth, where they will summon the earthworms, awaken dormant seeds, and then, next autumn, return to your dining table in the form of a plump crimson tomato or a bundle of fragrant herbs? One choice ends everything. One choice begins it all. If this quiet story has touched you and shifted how you view the rustic scraps in your kitchen, please gently press the like button and subscribe to the channel. We will continue to walk together on this journey of uncovering nature's greatest mysteries, the forgotten treasures resting right beneath your heels. Keep planting the seeds of understanding, and the future will surely blossom.